Holds me here with only a glance. She's over me. She's over me. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome to the Paranormal Portal. Just 1 second here. There, now I'm done. Just getting ready for the show. Of course, I forgot one last thing, which I just remembered. But welcome everybody to the show. It's our Friday night 2-hour paranormal extravaganza, and I'm absolutely thrilled you're here with me. Thanks so much. Hope you guys had a good week. All things considered. Oh my God. What a week. And it just, it's such a soup right now, and it shows no signs of letting up or getting any better anytime soon. So I don't know. I hope you guys are keeping your sanity out there. This year has just about dragged the hell out of all of us. I don't know what else can go sideways this year, but I'm sure I don't want to jinx it, so I'm knocking on the wood right now. I just don't know. It's just crazy, but I will tell you this, that thank God for entertainment. Thank God for the Paranormal Portal for me personally. And thank God for all the other shows that I watch and listen to that just take my mind off of all the craziness and all the weirdness and stupidity and I don't know, just general malcontent vibe that's out there. But I don't know, I'm making it, I guess. I hope you guys are making it too. This is definitely one for the record books. I don't know what the crescendo will be, but God, I hope things start improving soon. So that's enough of whining about this, but this is the Paranormal Portal. We got 2 full hours of paranormal fun. We were going to have a guest tonight, but he had to cancel due to the time constraints and such. So it's just me tonight with you guys, and I hope that that's okay. But I got a lot of wonderful stuff pulled up, some really exciting stuff that I found as well that I want to lead off with here in just a minute, because this is something I hadn't heard anything about, but I think it's something that all of us are pretty passionate about, the prospects of this coming into our mainstream, but we'll get to that in just a second. I do want to say that if you want to call in, you've got something paranormal of your very own that you'd like to share, please feel free. Call in at 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500. I know that for you guys listening out on TFR, iHeart, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live, that's different than the normal TFR number that you get for shows, but it's because I got my own number because I do shows throughout the weeks beyond my scheduled TFR time, so I got my own number. And we do calls all the time on the show. So if you've got something you want to share or something you want to comment about, I'd love to hear about it. So that's definitely a way to stay in touch with us here on the show, or to reach out and be a part of the show. Another way, of course, is by emailing if you have something that you've experienced but you don't want to talk about it on the air. That kind of freaks you out. I know some people just really get tense about the idea of calling in, and that's okay too. I get that. But if you want me to share your experience, you can certainly email it into us at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. Again, paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. And that will get it to me as well, and I can certainly share a story on your behalf. Now, if you email it now, I probably wouldn't get to it in time for the end of the show, but yeah, the moon is worn out. The moon is worn out. Aussie, who's watching on YouTube, says, hey, I take it the batteries in the moon are out. Yeah, it eats batteries like crazy. And for those of you listening just audio, I have a set set up behind me. And one of the things I have is this battery moon. And it's really cool and really fun, but the thing just devours batteries. And I don't know who wired that thing, but man, they must have put a black hole in the center of it because it sucks the life out of my batteries in no time. So I didn't get a chance to change them, or didn't remember to change them is probably more accurate, but we'll go with a chance. I didn't get a chance because that sounds way better. But anyway, those are the ways to get in touch with me. Also, don't forget about our podcast, ladies and gentlemen. We have a podcast out on all the major platforms, wherever you get podcasts from. Look for Paranormal Portal there as well, because we're probably on those platforms as well. I don't think there's any out there that we're not a part of that I know of. But if you are currently listening to a podcast platform like Podbeam or whatever, and I know we're on there, but if you're listening to wherever you get your podcast from and you're not finding the Paranormal Portal, let me know, and I'll make sure we get there too. But we are on literally dozens and dozens and dozens of platforms. So we should be out there, but the podcast is also separate shows. It's not the same thing as what you're listening to now. In fact, Sunday, new episode will be released, and it's an interview that I did with a gentleman who was a logger in Oregon for years and years and years, and some of the incredible experiences he had with Bigfoot. And that'll be the interview on Sunday that'll be released. So it's going to be a good one. So I hope you guys will make sure to find that wherever you get your podcast from. So tonight we got a lot of things to go over. First of all, the first thing I wanted to cover, I just stumbled onto this not even 45 minutes ago. I stumbled onto this and I was like, how come I've not heard of this? This is amazing. This is absolutely breathtakingly amazing. And what I'm talking about is let me just make sure. Now I have to check something quick when I do this. I got to switch screens and then check it because sometimes my sound isn't working on all the scenes. So let me switch over, and yes, it is working. Okay, so this is an article I found that I thought was really cool, and it's really exciting. And this is physicists build circuit that generates clean, limitless power from graphene. And then this article is coming from phys.org, which is like short for physics. So phys.org. And I don't know, this is extraordinarily exciting to me. So, because it kind of harkens to the ideas of Tesla is what kind of rings a bell for me. So if you're into the sciences and clean energy and stuff, pay attention. A team at the University of Arkansas physicist has successfully developed a circuit capable of capturing graphene's thermal motion and converting it into an electrical current. An energy harvesting circuit based on graphene could be incorporated into a chip to provide clean, limitless, low-voltage power for small devices or sensors, said Paul Thibodeau, professor of physics and lead researcher at in the discovery. The findings published in the journal Physical Review E are proof of a theory the physicists developed at the U of A 3 years ago that freestanding graphene, a single layer of carbon atoms, ripples and buckles in a way that holds promise for energy harvesting. The idea of harvesting energy from graphene is controversial because it refutes physicist Richard Feynman's well-known assertion. Sorry, it's all about where you enunciate that. It's assertion. Sorry. That the thermal motion of atoms, known as Brownian motion, cannot do work. Thibodeau's team found that at room temperatures, the thermal motion of graphene does in fact induce an alternating current in a circuit, an achievement thought to be impossible. In the 1950s, physicist Leon Brouillon published a trademark paper refuting the idea that adding a single diode, a one-way electrical gate, to a circuit is the solution to harvesting energy from a Brownian motion. Knowing this, Thibodeau's group built their circuit with two diodes for converting AC into direct current, DC. with the diodes in opposition, allowing the current to flow both ways. They provide separate paths through the circuit, producing a pulsing DC current that performs work on a load resistor. Additionally, they discovered that their design increased the amount of power delivered. We also found that the on-off switch-like behavior of the diodes actually amplifies the power delivered, rather than reducing it, as previously thought. Said Thibodeau, the rate of change in resistance provided by the diodes adds an extra factor to the power. The team used a relatively new field of physics to prove that the diodes increased the circuit's power. In proving this power enhancement, we drew from the emergent field of stochastic thermodynamics and extended the nearly century-old celebrated theory of Nyquist, said co-author Pradeep Kumar, associate professor of physics and co-author. According to Kumar, the graphene and circuits share a symbiotic relationship through the thermal environment. Though the thermal environment is performing work on the load resistor, the graphene and circuit are at the same temperature, and heat does not flow between the two. That's an important distinction, said Thibodeau, because the temperature difference between the graphene and circuit in a circuit producing power would contradict the second law of thermodynamics. This means that the second law of thermodynamics is not violated, nor is there any need to argue that Maxwell's demon is separating hot and cold electrons, Thibodeau said. The team also discovered that the relatively slow motion of graphene induces current in the circuit at low frequencies, which is important from a technological perspective because electronics function more efficiently at lower frequencies. People may think that current flowing in a resistor causes it to heat up, but the Brownian current does not. In fact, if no current was flowing, the resistor would cool down, Thibodeau explained. And what we did was reroute the current in the circuit and transform it into something useful. The team's next objective is to determine if the DC current can be stored in a capacitor for later use, a goal that requires miniaturizing the circuit and patterning it on a silicon wafer or chip. If millions of these tiny circuits could be built on a 1 millimeter by 1 millimeter chip, they could serve as a low-power battery replacement. I mean, my God, that's amazing. That is absolutely phenomenal. So I don't know. I know Tesla was big on the idea that there is current and power all around us, and in this case, they were able to take that thin layer of graphene atoms and harness that wave that occurs in them naturally and make it, I don't know, not unlike harvesting power, I don't know, from maybe the surf or something like that, where they talk about harnessing the power of waves in the ocean. I don't know. It's just really exciting stuff because this could be a standalone power development. And as that scales and develops, I mean, think about it. If you had an electric car and you had banks of these batteries, if they were ever engineered to the potential to power that car, you would never need to fill it up ever. You would never need to recharge it ever. It would just certainly create its own charge, and that would be the case for all your kids' toys and moons on the wall that eat up batteries, which may or may not be as important to you as it is to me. But the point is that if you think about all of the work that goes into battery production, all of the waste, all of the problems that come along with that fact, perhaps there's a much cleaner way to do it utilizing a technology like this. But then again, maybe I'm jumping way, way, way ahead. And maybe this isn't really paranormal, but it is free energy. And it's harnessing free energy, which certainly ties into the entire UFO field and a lot of legend in the physics world, and especially in terms of Nikola Tesla. So I think this is really exciting. I hope you guys agree. I think it's just phenomenal. I will actually link this article in both chats that I have. And there's two places you can chat on the Paranormal Portal. One of them is at tfrlive.com. And if you go to tfrlive.com/chat, you can create your own chat name and get in there and meet the people in there. And I often will share articles and things in there for people to browse and check out. And the other way is, of course, by going to our YouTube page at youtube.com/paranormal portal. And you can watch the episode as it's happening, which is always good. All right. So I've posted that link in both of the chats that I have available to me. If you're interested in checking out more of that, that's how you can do it. But I think that is just exciting. I don't know. Is it just me? Am I just being, maybe my really limited idea of physics is making a mountain out of a molehill, but to me that just seems revolutionary. Bill 13 did a Darth Sidious a GIF in the TFR chat. Unlimited power. Awesome. I appreciate that. Your guys' GIFs always make me laugh. So thank you for that. Thank you for that. I don't know. I think it's cool. And of course we got a phone call. I must have triggered somebody. Let's see see if I triggered Farm. Hello, Farm. How you doing, brother?
Hey, Brent, how's it going? You triggered a brain lightning storm over here.
What'd you think of that? Isn't that exciting?
That is super exciting on a microchip level. It's interesting. They were talking about using the diodes. Tesla used something similar in his technologies. He used basically a magnetically quenched spark gap to help squeeze. He basically used high frequency devices. He was using spinning devices because that was the technology at the time, but very high frequency devices, and he used what's called a magnetically quenched spark gap, where you put a magnet where the spark gap is, and that makes the spark not hop across until the voltage and the energy and current build up higher, and that gives you a greater pulse. And what most people don't know about Tesla is his technologies for harvesting energy and transmitting energy weren't based on actually AC current. They were based on pulsed DC current. In other words, current of the same polarity, but pulsed at very high frequencies. And that pulsing, he said, was what gained a tremendous amount of energy out of the ether or vacuum or whatever you want to call it. So really interesting that they're doing something similar with solid state circuitry there. Also, I've seen there's something called a Bedini motor. If you want to look more into this Bedini motor is really interesting in charging batteries using a very small amount of energy to run a very efficient motor, and then using the back EMF from that to charge battery banks. I haven't verified the authenticity of that one, but interesting parallels along those lines.
Yeah, there's another alleged circuit out there that's supposed to harvest free energy as well, and it kind of has this weird design of basket weaving some cabling around a perimeter, and then putting I forget what the hell they said it was called, a no resistance capacitor in there or something, a huge thing, and allegedly developing free electricity. Now I know there's also about 1,000,001 cons that are floating around on YouTube for that. Free energy, just do this, and that's really unfortunate, because I think if there's enough people doing the work, somebody's going to stumble onto something. But with the amount of cons out there, it unfortunately de-emphasizes the whole pursuit quite a bit, I think. Would you agree?
I completely agree, and nothing frustrates me more than that. Yeah, I completely agree, and nothing frustrates me more than con artists, basically disrupting authentic attempts at, progress in scientific work. There's another guy that was at the University of Ottawa. His name is Thane C. Hines, and he developed a generator called, it's a regenerative generator. Basically, it produces over unity power based on the power input. And he made two versions of it. One was a transformer, a three-way transformer, and another one was it was basically an AC motor wired in a specific pattern and run through a specific circuit set. And he was doing research on that, and he was on YouTube for quite some time. I haven't looked in any of this stuff in a long time. I actually did a really deep dive on this research a number of years ago. So that's part of why you triggered me, because there's so much information I'd like to share around it. But I won't bore you with all the details, but I just thought I would make some parallels to Tesla stuff and all that sort of stuff. Very, very interesting field of study. It's really exciting to see this in a more mainstream form of science now. And it makes me wonder, I know there are rumors that they stole, when Tesla died, that the FBI came in and stole all his research work and like sequestered it away.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if some of this stuff is that technology coming back out.
Oh.
And then, of course, we have the other conspiracy theory where they claim that alien technology has been given down to government to go to us. I wonder if either of those streams is a possibility, or this is just independent work.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'd like to believe that there's the brilliance of people is potentially possible to create such things, but at the same time, then you look at the state of things and go, nope, there's no way we did that.
Yeah, for sure. I'd like to believe that that's coming from brilliant minds. Then it was given to us by whatever.
I would like to too, but I don't know. I tell you what, that I did notice throughout the course of that article that nobody mentioned Tesla at all. Now, it may not be built exactly on his, but I think everybody should tip their hat to Tesla every time they talk about free energy and ways to harness that. And it was a little saddening that I went through that whole article.
Absolutely.
And there was not one mention of Nikola Tesla. Ugh. Tragedies, I tell you, tragedies. But I'll tell you this too,
Yep.
Carlton. I did build, like I went through some of those videos too, and that's how I know there's so many scams out there. Is because I did rebuild some of those things, thinking, well, is there something to this? and I just ended up with lots of bent copper and solder and a mess. And nothing at all. I was largely disappointed over and over, but they had me for a while. I was like, fish on. So whatever. But it's an exciting field.
Yeah, I've been through a lot of that too. Interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Interesting side note on the free energy. There was a guy named Stan Myers who built a water carburetor, basically, where he was using a very efficient technique of splitting hydrogen and oxygen and burning it as a fuel. And interestingly enough, he was poisoned to death suddenly after he started talking about his car quite a bit. So you can draw your own lines on that, I guess. But
yeah,
interesting.
I think that that's
technology.
It's a little too convenient that somebody has a revolutionary device and ends up suddenly poisoned. I don't buy that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
Here we are in the Stone Age still. We're still in the Stone Age, but I think we're going to have to break out of it sooner or later. Hey, you know what, Bill in the TFR chat
I agree.
Just put a AC/DC thing in there. And stick around, Bill, because I got something coming up after the break about AC/DC that I think you'll find pretty interesting. So that's coming up in just a few minutes. But Carlton, we'll have to, I know we were talking about doing another show, but I'll be damned if I can remember what it was. But this could certainly be one of them that I would like to discuss at length is free energy. Because I think that's...
Oh, I would love that.
Okay. Well, then we should dig into that too. I don't remember what the other one was going to be, but this one would certainly be one that I think it'd be a lot of fun, and we could certainly talk about emerging technologies and things like that. Because I really think that this is still one of those primal barriers that are built up to keep people in places, and that if energy were free, it would open up a lot of doors, and suddenly, the world would be a little bit smaller and maybe a little bit friendlier. But I think it's definitely one of those revolutionary things that when it breaks, it's going to be huge. It's just how to get past that oligarchy that keeps us in the Stone Age.
I couldn't agree more. In fact, Carnegie defunded Tesla when he realized that Tesla wanted to make the energy free to the world. So interesting correlation there with the same greedy groups of people on throughout history. It would change the economics of the world entirely, and maybe people would lose this scarcity mentality and finally start to recognize that nature and the universe are infinitely abundant, and we don't need to fight each other over petty things, and we could actually get along and evolve our whole consciousness.
Right. And just think about even the environmental ramifications of not having to, mine and grind away the natural resources in order to create energy. Without that impact on our world, that would be huge in making gigantic steps towards things cleaning up.
massive. Yeah, I almost want to say maybe we should incorporate some of the future technologies that are coming in agriculture in that conversation. But I think just covering the free energy stuff is probably going to make 2 hours scream by really fast. But yeah, I'm totally game for that. And hit me up whenever you want to do that, and we'll do it. I'm glad to come in and talk.
All right, brother. I appreciate it.
I always enjoy our conversations.
Yeah, me too. And it'll be a good time. I think a lot of people will be really interested in that discussion. So we'll make it happen. But thanks, man. I appreciate your input, and I appreciate your calling in.
Sounds good, Brent. Always a pleasure. Carry on.
All right. Talk to you soon, brother. Thanks. All right. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. A great part of this show is just the ability that you guys can do that. You can call in and just add to the discussion, add to the conversation. That's what I love about having a phone line, ladies and gentlemen, and that's what makes the portal exceptionally good, because believe me, I don't have the answers. I'm not an expert on anything except that I know how to turn the show on time and do it. But it's you guys that bring so much to the table. So thank you for that. And thank you to everybody who's been spreading the word. It's always exciting to see us growing and growing. And I have you guys to thank for that. So thank you all for doing it. It just means the world to me. And don't be afraid to share these streams on your social media as they're happening. That's perfectly fine with me. I'm thrilled to meet new people all the time. So let's see. We're about to go to break. So we're going to take a quick couple-minute break. If you're new to the show, we are broadcasting on YouTube as well as TFR Live, iHeart, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live. And the YouTube audience doesn't have to take breaks, but since I'm also simulcasting on the networks, we have to take breaks every 30 minutes. So in the stead of you guys listening to commercials on YouTube, I've created little video montages for you to entertain you through that time. But that's why we take breaks on Fridays, Saturdays, so just so you understand. But don't go away, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back with the next half hour of the show. So I'll meet you back here. Hello there. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Half hour number 2 is upon us here on the Paranormal Portal. Every once in a while I get a message from somebody, and this one kind of perplexes me, so I got to ask you guys, because you guys are always listening, and I'm curious what you think. Is my voice too quiet on the show, or do you hear me okay? I'm curious because every once in a while I'll get this one person, hey, your voice is really quiet. You got to jack up your volume or something. And I'm like, God, I've already got myself preamped about as much as I possibly can and metered up to the point that I'm going to start clipping. But for some reason, my voice still seems to come across soft to some listeners. But others of you have told me, no, you sound great. So what are you guys experiencing out there? If you would, please let me know, because I don't know. I don't know what to do to get more volume unless I get a different mic, which may be in the works. But, I think I can hear myself okay, but I got the headphones. So let me know if you could. Sound is perfect. Thank you, Cha-Cha. I appreciate that. Fine here. Elaine says, War Child 617. Good. YTFP Chris said he turned up his volume. And I assume you turned it up just for the show. Thank you, Bam. I appreciate it. That let me know in the TFR chat. Because I'm just curious. I don't know. I really don't think I can do much more on my end to give myself more. The music makes me want to... Jesus, Aussie. You can twerk all you want, Aussie. Just do it off camera. Go ahead and have a twerk fest. That's fine. But anyway, thank you all for being here, and everybody that is here and all that will come in after I say this. I'm always thrilled to be here doing the show with you. So, before I said that, I had some information about AC/DC that I thought was incredibly interesting. But before I get to that, and because it's related, let me get to this article from Coast to Coast AM, or Coast to Coast, I think it's still AM, isn't it? Yeah, it's coast to coast am.com. This article is from coast to coast am.com, ladies and gentlemen. And this is, apparently Nessie is spotted on sonar again. And I don't know, it shows a little screen capture here. It's just, I mean, it literally, I would share it, but it's just a one band where you can see the ground and then a little dot above that. So it's not like an impressive radar return here. But let me read this article and tell you what it says. It says, for the second time in less than a month, a boat cruising along Loch Ness picked up a curious anomaly on sonar that some suspect could be the site's legendary monster. As with the first case, which occurred back in September 30th, the potential underwater sighting was reportedly logged by Ronald Mackenzie of Cruise Loch Ness during a tour of the location on October 11th. In this instance, the sizable anomaly was situated at a depth of approximately 600 feet and clearly stood out on the sonar return as something out of the ordinary. The two sightings have proven to be so compelling that sonar expert Craig Wallace, who surveyed the Loch Ness looking for the monster in the past, has offered to return to the site for a fresh search. Asked about the pair of images captured in recent weeks, he observed they are very curious. Those are, of course, large. These are, of course, large, clear, and distinct contacts, all strangely near to the loch bed. Wallace went on to note that previous surveys of the site used what is now outdated technology and postulated that perhaps another look with modern instruments could yield some intriguing results. As with the eerie sonar sighting last month, this new image has been met with considerable enthusiasm from the Nessie researchers, calling the dual images a game changer that are in a different league from the many rubbish sightings over the years. Longtime monster hunter Steve Feltham, is that right? Feltham, argued that the anomalies are not explainable by any known phenomena in Loch Ness, and taken together constitute the first indisputable sighting of something very big and unexplained that's in there. So apparently Nessie's still showing up down there, ladies and gentlemen, and I don't know, it doesn't look very big on the screen. It just looks like this little blue dot above a red line. But I guess that means something a lot more in sonar world than it does in my picture world. So But anyway, I want to get to the next thing, which ties into this, because of course we love AC/DC here in the portal. I think everybody should love AC/DC, whether you're in the portal or not. They're just one of those bands that has just really helped to redefine the sound of a generation. And this article comes from unexplained-mysteries.com, and it says AC/DC once tried to find the Loch Ness Monster. And the article says, the rock band's members once attempted an impromptu Nessie hunt on the banks of Scotland's famous loch. Many people have attempted to track down the Loch Ness Monster over the years, but none of these attempts can quite compare to what AC/DC's Brian Johnson and his late bandmate Malcolm Young got up to on the shores of the loch during a trip to Scotland many years ago. Speaking during an interview as part of the band's promotional blitz for the new album Power Up, Johnson described to British music journalist site NME how the pair had attempted to find the monster. Malcolm loved his fireworks, and he'd taken a big box with him, he said. One night we were 4 sheets to the wind and staying at this hotel right on the side of the loch. Mel just said, come on, let's go and find the Loch Ness Monster. I've got fireworks, and it might attract it. Unsurprisingly, things didn't go quite according to plan. They were going straight into the water on our shore, on our shoes, up to our knees. There we were. Oh, okay. There we were going straight into the water in our shoes, up to our knees, and it was freezing, Johnson continued. Mal had a drink in one hand and a box of fireworks in the other. He was trying to set fire to the loch. We were just howling. By the time we got back to our wives, we had straw in our hair and were covered in mud. What a night. Suffice it to say, the pair didn't find any sign of the elusive beast. Well, it's not for lack of trying, obviously. And rest in peace, Malcolm. That's too bad. I don't know. I've heard the new song. It's pretty good. It's It's amazing to me that, these bands, and I always wondered about this in years past. It was like, where do they go? They these bands that just left such a huge imprint. And it wasn't until the last 20 years that those same bands finally started continuing. But it was like there was a shelf life for bands. And it was, during their 20s and maybe into the 30s. And then it was like they just disappeared. It's like, did they forget how to write the songs? Did they forget, how to put that all together? And it was a weird thing to me. But then in more recent years, we started, I think Kiss was one of the biggest ones. They just kept going. Well, and it makes it easier when you're wearing makeup and, elevator boots, because who can tell how the hell old you are? But I think we've finally gotten used to seeing our aged rockers still up there and tearing it up. And really, I think teaching a lot of new generations what it means to play. And it's really cool that they're still out there doing it. Aerosmith, so many others just kept going. And that was really cool. Because it's like they didn't forget how. It's just like they quit being promoted because, I don't know, there's maybe just because they got old. Maybe they thought, well, they're not going to excite the kids like they used to, so just put them on the shelf now. But I'm glad to see AC/DC still at it and still, cutting the sheet for sure. But cool. I just thought I'd share that with you guys because it's not every time you can hear about one of the major bands looking for a cryptid as such. I think that's awesome. All right, so continuing on. Let's see. I got a little error there. That's okay though. That's okay. I'm not worried about that. I wanted to get into an article that I had pulled up before. There's a couple of them I wanted to get into, but this wasn't it. Where is it? Oh, here it is. All right. This one is, it's an article from Footnote. And I've seen this, it's fascinate.com. Oh, it's factinate.com. So fact and then innate.com. And it's the beyond. These chilling paranormal experiences defy explanation. So now we're going into more ghostly stuff, it looks like, but that's okay because we're going to revisit the cryptids in a little bit here. We got a lot of smorgasbord coming up for you guys, so stick around. Something for everybody. I'm trying to put something for everybody on every show. So this is factinate.com. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And it's these things that went bump in the night is the first part. It says, ever been alone in the darkness on the middle of the night? Ever hear a noise from downstairs, a footstep in the hall, or a creak in the landing? Ever sense the presence of something when no one was around? We've all had the hairs on the back of our necks before, rays on the back of our necks rather, but what if we actually saw something in these moments? Well, these Redditors did, and they're sharing their paranormal experiences. First one is the thing that went bump in the night. One day I came home from a date at about 11 p.m. The house was dark, but I didn't switch on the lights because I knew my way around. I went straight to the bathroom, and on my way back down the passage, I bumped into my dog, who's about as big as my mid-thigh. I told my boy I love him and that he should be sleeping, but good boy for checking on his mom. I opened my bedroom door, which was 3/4 of the way closed, and switched on the lights at the same time as I opened it. And what I saw made my blood run cold. There's my dog on my bed, lifting his head when the light came on to look at me. Well, I would have heard him or felt him move past me if he'd gone back by me and entered the room before, but no, I was totally alone. So what bumped into me? Yeah, that's horrible. That's a horrible thing because, God, so at that point, I'm not alone. All right, well, there you go. Number 2, if these walls could talk. What do you think about that? I mean, have you ever thought about that? What if you bumped into something in the hall, thought it was your pet or even a family member, and then when you got past and went to the family member's area, they were there. Oh, God, that would make your blood run cold for sure. That's creepy. So it says, when my dad was younger, he used to see a woman in a white nightdress holding up a candelabra walking along the hallway at his old house. Well, no one ever believed him, but he thought it was his grandmother. Fast forward 20 plus years, and he's talking to someone he works with. This girl says she used to see a woman in a white nightdress holding a candelabra in her old house. My dad asked where she used to live, and it was his old house. She's still there. That's pretty cool. I mean, in cases like that, that's not an aggressive haunting. That's not really too over the board. That's just something there, someone there, and continuing to be there. I don't know. I don't think that that's too bad. I mean, I'm sure it's disconcerting because you're seeing somebody that shouldn't be there, and who carries a candelabra anymore, But it's still kind of neat. I think it's neat anyway. All right, the next one is an unexpected guest. Jesus, ads. More ads, please? I'm just joking. No more. It says, I'm a paranormal investigator, so I live for the creepy and paranormal. I seek it out. Throughout my time as an investigator, I've experienced a lot of really creepy things. But the strangest happened at the Sally House in Atchison, Kansas. My team had arranged toys on the floor in Sally's room because it said that Sally will move them if you do that. Well, we just finished dinner break in the kitchen downstairs and went upstairs to check on our equipment in Sally's room. But when we got to the top of the steps, the door to Sally's room was closed, even though none of us had closed it. Someone knocked on the door and asked, "Is anyone in there?" The response made me jump out of my skin. We distinctly heard a male voice say, "No, just leave." I need to point out we were all downstairs together. No one had gone upstairs to close the door. Absolutely not. But any investigator will also tell you in old houses, doors sometimes do close. However, no men were upstairs. And we had 2 men in our group, and both of them were downstairs. So what do you do at that point? Do you leave? Do you go, okay, we're out of here, sorry? Or do you follow through? Because here's the thing. I think when you're investigating and stuff, I think it is important. I don't know, because I think we all push through it anyway. But I think it is important to honor if they say get out. That means they don't want you there, and they're already there, and most of the time you don't live there. It's not a place where you live. It's not like your house. So if they say get out, it's usually recommended that you do, or at least move away from that area. But at the same time, I guess it depends on what you're doing. If you're looking for proof, that could definitely escalate things and get you the proof you need. But at the same time, what is that escalating after? What happens after you leave? Then somebody still lives there? Eesh. I don't know. It's I guess it's up to the individual, but I would always recommend if you're told to leave, probably leave. All right, but that is pretty cool, pretty wild. This one is a small dark feeling. I had a close friend and roommate who came down to breakfast one morning, very disturbed, about a dream in which his parents were disappearing and saying goodbye to him. He was very upset about the dream, which was not in his nature, and I'd never seen him bothered by anything before. He was always a very happy and charismatic guy. Well, later we got a phone call with the awful news that his parents, who lived in the other side of the world, had in fact both passed that night in a car accident. Wow. So does that make it easier? I mean, in one regard, yeah, they're far away, and they did pass, and that's a horrible thing, but does it make it easier that they appeared and said goodbye and that, that they loved him or whatever, and before they passed? I think that that's kind of a beautiful thing, especially in a situation like that. So this person's all the way on the other side of the world anyway. And then to hear that kind of news that you've just lost your family, that would be so hard to deal with. But I really think that that would have softened the blow for that person. I hope it did, because what a profound thing to have, to have had them come and say goodbye. There's some things in this world that you just have to deal with. But when you're given that little, reprieve, or that little moment beyond the worlds, beyond the times, and, just outside of all reality as we understand it, and have a moment to talk to your loved ones, I think that that's very powerful. And it was for me when I experienced it. If you're new to the show, I've shared many times, but I had a dream of my dad after he died. And it was this very healing, beautiful thing because, he and I, we bumped heads a lot. And it wasn't that we didn't love each other. We loved each other very much, but it's just one of those relationships. And it was tough after he died because, I just knew that all of these things that were in my head and in my heart would have to stay there now, because I could never have a conversation with him, or could never find the ability to close that or to heal it. And then he came to me in a dream, and we discussed it. And he apologized to me, and I apologized to him, and we embraced. And I woke up, and my eyes, just bawling. But it was awesome. It was amazing. And I was really, really grateful for that experience. And it did soften my grieving a lot. This was just a couple of years ago. So it was a really powerful thing for me personally. And I wish everybody could have that experience. I don't know. Maybe we all do, but in our own way. Maybe we have them and don't remember them. But man, I'll tell you, it was the most real dream I've ever had, along with other real dreams I had being visited by other relatives. But in that case, it was really cool. But I it's tough. That's really tough. This one is, oh, come on. It's kind of frozen. Ugh. Thank you, Eds. All right. This one is, oh boy. This is a real quick one. I was doing security at a hospital with an ER, ICU, surgical, and the whole works. And I got called to several paranormal calls. Most were psych cases or paranoid people that heard strange noises. We never believed them until one day. This time, more than one nurse saw a guy on the camera who was on his deathbed. He kept saying, "I will not die in a hospital," earlier that day, and literally pushing his curtain aside and walking out of his room towards the elevator. A code was called, and everyone immediately posted, and at their designated locations. Within seconds, there were people watching the elevators and the stairs, and security started combing the area for the patient. As I reached the ICU floor, I spoke with the lead nurse, and she told me several of the nurses saw him leave. At that exact moment, monitors started going off. My jaw dropped. The guy never left. He was still in his bed. He code blued and died right there. There were 3 witnesses on the report saying that he got up and left and were serious enough to call code, which could cost them their jobs if they were wrong. The bosses wouldn't let us watch the video, but the looks on their faces said it all. The bosses said the nurses did the right thing, and some things just cannot be explained. So this guy got up yelling, "I won't die in a hospital," walked out. People saw this person walk out of the hospital, or at least out of his room and go out of the room and to the elevator. They never did find him out there. And then they found his dead body in his bed. He never left. That's a hell of an experience, ladies and gentlemen. Very powerful stuff. All right, this one's called The Dark Doppelganger. I was having an intense conversation with someone who I was close to years ago. The conversation quickly devolved into a passive-aggressive fight that ended with the other person getting in the car and driving away. As I started heading back inside, the other person came back, got out of the car, and started our conversation again. Except this time, something was very, very wrong. Their tone of voice was totally different, and their stance was different, and the feeling in the air was completely off. I don't know how else to explain it. As the conversation progressed, the other person started saying some nasty and mean things that were completely out of character. I said, "This isn't like you, Emma." Oh my God, their response. They said, "What makes you think that I'm Emma?" I remember continuing the conversation and talking to the person for a long time, but I don't remember anything specific. I do remember becoming more and more alarmed and knowing that something wasn't right. Finally, I told the person to go home. They complied and left. I went back inside and started telling my siblings about the situation when the doorbell rang after maybe 2 or 3 minutes had passed. It was Emma coming back to apologize for the original fight. They had been driving around town for a long time and didn't want to go home, leaving things unresolved. I asked why they had said some of the things from the last conversation, and they looked at me like I was crazy. They had no idea what I was talking about. Totally could have been lying, but that whole situation just felt dark. It scared the hell out of me. They actually said heck, but, I took liberties with that. It says, the next one is when a stranger calls. My brother and I were home alone one night watching television while my mom was working a night shift and my dad was out. Eventually, my father came home, pushed the door ajar, poked his head through to say hello. We both turned around and said hello back. My father closed the door. 30 seconds after that, another man opened the door to say hello. We both turned around to say hello back. The man closed the door. We assumed one of my dad's friends had just come over to have a beer. And anyway, about 5 minutes later, I headed into the kitchen where my dad was making dinner or whatever. And I'm expecting to see his friend again. I see that he's alone making dinner and assumed his friend was upstairs in the bathroom and asked my father, "Who is your friend?" My father looks at me and asks, "What friend?" I reply, "The guy that came back with you, Dad." Dad looks at me, thinking I'm some sort of weirdo. He says, "I came back home on my own." Biggest what I've ever experienced. My brother was freaked out to the max. We both remember the man's face. He was pale looking and had bright white hair. Wow. Oh my God. That's terrible. I don't know. If the dad was out clubbing and stuff, there you go again. I don't know. Take it or leave it, ladies and gentlemen. And far be it from me to, to say that this is true or not. But I've got to tell you that I've always been warned about bars and hospitals, that those are the places you can pick up an attachment. And the idea is that alcohol is, lowers your aura, puts holes in your aura, and things can be attached to you, or or worse. And so, and granted, I've never listened to that advice personally. I've been to the bars many times when I was younger, but I had heard that, and now this dad just came home. I assume he was out partying with his friends or something. I don't know. Maybe stop for a beer after work or whatever, but to come home and then do that, wow, that's intense. All right, we'll continue this after the break, ladies and gentlemen. We've got a lot more to go through, so I hope you're having a good time. A couple minutes, don't go away. Hour number 2 will begin.
Play their games. Everybody loves to place their bets. They don't understand the price I paid. They don't care to comprehend. Trace their lines upon my body, dripping scars across my heart. Raging anger pours inside me as their lies keep falling apart. With my silence, I am not a stupid boy. No more breaking me with kindness, just you dance upon my joy. Leading me with empty promise, you're just another fucking mess. Taking off the slice of my sanity, just make sure that you're well fed. I'm not wrong yet. I'm not broken yet. I'm not broken yet.
This was extraordinarily bad.
They linger in a perpetual dream state, a nightmare from which they cannot wake. I can't see you, Mommy. Where are you? I've never sensed anything like it. Carol Ann is not like those she's with. They're attracted to the one thing about her that is different from themselves. Her life force. It is very strong. It gives off its own illumination. It is a light that implies life and memory of love and home and earthly pleasures. Something they desperately desire, but can't have it more. Right now, she's the closest thing to that.
Poltergeists are usually associated with an individual. Hauntings seem to be connected with an area. A house, usually.
Poltergeist disturbances are of fairly short duration, perhaps a couple of months. Hauntings can go on for years.
Hour number 2, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back. Hour number 2 of the Paranormal Portal is now underway. What does that mean for you? Well, it should mean just loads of entertainment if I'm doing my job. If I'm not doing my job, then it's another couple of half hours of fun, hopefully. I hope that's how you guys are seeing it. That's how I'm seeing it. But we're just midway through an article we were going through about some really strange paranormal events. And I think these are wacky, but in a good way. I mean, they're just bizarre, right? So it's, again, the paranormal is where things kind of go sideways. But I think it's demonstrating the profound extent of the reality we live in. I don't think that it's where things break or go quirky or weird. It's just showing us something more. Demonstrating the fluid and dynamic nature of our reality. So, what was I going to say? Oh, I was going to say, if you're listening on TFR, iHeart, tune in and TalkStream Live, stick around after the show, after our hour number 2, because then we'll be coming Paisley Wild. Paisley Wild will be coming up after that, and she does a great show dealing with her show, The Spaces Between, which is kind of her pagan journey, and she talks about energy crystals, lots of really cool holistic stuff and esoteric ideas and practices, and I think if you're kind of into that, you'll really love her show. And you can stick around and listen to that. She also streams it live. If you go to youtube.com/thespacesbetween, you can check out her show and get involved that way. But following that, then, of course, will be World Bigfoot Radio. So lots of fun left to come yet tonight on TFR. So don't leave early. Okay. So getting back to this article, ladies and gentlemen, this is... it really is a fascinating article, and I really love these kind of things. But the next segment is speaking to yourself, and I hate the way this page is divided up because these ads all over the place are just killing me. I don't like that kind of stuff. It's just obnoxious as hell. But anyway, I showed up at work one night, and my boss was shocked to see me. He said I'd just called in sick. Little did I know that was just the start of a terrifying nightmare that I still can't explain. When I called home, I expected my wife to pick up, but instead, the voice on the other end was my own. I said in an almost scream, "Where is Ann?" He said, "Ann's in bed. Who's this?" I dropped the phone and told my boss I had to get home and took off towards the door. I could hear him pick up the phone behind me and say, "Hello," and then start to scream. I peeled into the driveway, ran up to my front door, but I honestly never could have prepared for what I saw. My wife was sitting watching television and was shocked at me being home. I asked her who was here, and she said, "No one has been here." After a rather long talk with my wife, I went to call the prison to tell them what was going on, but the phone was dead. I went back to work, and when I came in, Dave was acting weird and asked me, "How on earth are you doing this?" He told me that when I left, God, really? Ugh. When I left, he picked up the phone, and the person on the other end sounded just like me. He kind of freaked out and hung up the phone. A minute later, as he could see my car leaving the parking lot, I had called back from home and asked what's going on, and he said, I was bit irate and said I was sick and did not feel like playing these games and was telling him to stop prank calling and hung up. After convincing him I had no idea what was going on, he went back to work. Later, I find out that the phone line for my area had been knocked down the night before by the storm. This is absolutely the strangest thing that has ever happened to me. So what is that? Is that a dimensional deal? Is there some kind of alternate reality peeking through there? What is that? And hell, I don't know. I think about things like the Mandela effect and how we seem to just suddenly be in a whole new universe where things are a little different. And you try to make sense of it, and you try to understand what the hell is going on, but it just feels like things are odd. And certainly reality lately would definitely qualify for being in an alternate reality of some kind, or some kind of twisted, bizarro world like Don said. But God, it's just, I don't know. That would be absolutely terrifying, to be home and yet be at work and even to talk to yourself. That is absolutely freaky. This was Little Boy Lost. I was 8 years old on Christmas Eve and lived on the third floor of a large house that was converted into apartments. Well, I had trouble falling asleep, and one night I saw a boy floating outside of my window wearing one of those old beanie hats with the propeller on top. I threw the covers over my head and tried to ignore it, and eventually fell asleep. I'm just thinking about Salem's Lot as I'm reading that, right? Any of you seen that old TV show, Salem's Lot? Oh, God. That was terrifying when I was a kid. I was like... the next morning, my parents told me that they saw a figure of a small boy sitting at the end of their bed and asked if it was me, which it was not. Well, a few years later, we had some plumbing work done, and they had to tear up the floorboards, and they found an old book that had pictures of the property from about 60 years prior, and its contents sent a shiver down my spine. There was a picture of the boy I saw in there, and it turns out that he was shot during a hunting accident on the property and passed. Still freaks me out to this day. Oh, that's so tragic. God. Oh. This one is the red right hand. All right, I was sleeping in my basement, which is pretty much my bedroom. I woke up at some random time in the night for no reason. I rolled over and saw a black figure, probably around 5'10", a typical male physique, standing at the side of my bed. It was standing between the bed and the stairs, so there was no way to get out. I just rolled over and straight up started praying. I rolled back over, and it was gone. The next morning, I was in the shower, also in the basement, and the curtain was pushed to the side. Not like all the way, but it noticeably moved. Then when I get out of the shower, my cello's D string was plucked 3 times and then wrung out. But the creepiest thing was yet to come. I went upstairs where I saw my little brother. Oh, jeez, these ads. And he had this vivid red handprint that reached all the way across his neck and cheek. It was too big to be his own hand, but the man I had seen hovering near my bed, it was the right size to be his. Oh, that's horrible. So this one is called I'm Sorry, What? I'm a former paramedic, and one day my team responded to a report of a man down on the side of the railroad tracks near an old embankment. When we arrived, we saw that the man had no signs of life. When we tried to revive him, he flatlined on the EKG with fixed and dilated pupils. He had no visible signs of trauma, and the body wasn't cold yet, so he hasn't been gone too long. We searched the area and find a makeshift tent campsite where the guy apparently was living, and find no medications or anything out of the ordinary. We're not too far from an area where everyone believes is haunted and is the site for satanic worship. Even though all of us on the scene knew about the rumors, none of us had actually seen it or had proof. It's dark, and we were all waiting around for the funeral home to show up and bring the body to the morgue for an autopsy. And then the freaky stuff started. A few of us heard what sounded like people whispering, but it wasn't from any specific direction. And then the whispering stopped, and the people on scene that hadn't heard the whispering started hearing what they all described as children laughing wickedly, but it was all over, not from any specific direction. Those of us that he had heard the whispering never heard the new noise. And this went on for about 10 or 15 minutes when we're standing next to the corpse. Officers on the scene told their dispatcher to tell the funeral home to step it up and get out there ASAP. The next afternoon, we went to the morgue to speak to the coroner and find out the cause of death. The coroner's first question was utterly disturbing. He calmly asked us why did we clean the body? Me and my partner looked at him kind of strange and asked what he was talking about. And he said it must have been a very bloody scene, so we told him there was no blood anywhere around the scene. He turned pale and said that just added to the confusion, because the body had absolutely no blood in it whatsoever. There were no marks anywhere on him, and where blood could have been drained out. He also said he had a weird experience while doing the autopsy, but refused to tell us what had happened. To this day, we have still never learned the actual cause of death, or been able to explain the whispering and evil laughing. Oh, that's horrible. That's absolutely horrible. So they find this body. It's still warm to the touch, so it hasn't been dead long. They try to resuscitate with no effect. They hear this weird disembodied ghostly laughing and children maniacally laughing and weird sounds. And the coroner can't find any blood anywhere. Can't find any reason for the blood to be out of the body. There's no drainage holes or anything. I mean, that's just bizarre. That is, God, you hear about things, some weirdness in terms of some of those dark ritualistic practices. And I've heard hundreds of them through the years, and I don't know what to believe. I mean, it's always, unless you see it, I guess it'd be pretty hard to believe, but I don't know. And there again, I have no idea that this is actually a factual story. It's a story that's represented as factual, but God, I don't know. That's strange. That would be one of those, if they are doing dark practices around there, they're obviously really good at it. So stay away. This one's called The Vanishing. I dropped my mug onto the floor accidentally one day. It should have been no big deal, but it turned into my weirdest glitch in the Matrix moment. I heard no noise when it hit the floor, and when I went to pick it up, it was gone. I honestly went to bed and pondered what happened and slept feeling incredibly uncomfortable. I never did find the mug. It remained missing even days later. It still bothers me to this day. That is weird. You drop a mug and it's gone. Get out right now. This one sounds dark. My family moved into a new house when I was 11 years old. The previous owners were a family, and the mom passed away of cancer. Well, they sold the house shortly after she passed. Growing up, my sister and I always had an uneasy feeling about that house. Strange things would happen, but everything had a plausible explanation, except for one time when I was 16. In the middle of the night, I was having trouble sleeping, and while I was lying there in my bed, the door to my room opened on its own. I could hear footsteps come into my room. I couldn't see anyone, but I felt like someone else was in my room. Ever have someone come up behind you while you're on the computer? It was like that. I could hear the footsteps getting closer to my bed, and then right next to me appeared a compression on my bed, like an invisible person was sitting there. I could even feel the weight shift. I reached out to touch the compression, and all of a sudden, a bunch of blue static electricity shot out of the spot I touched. I screamed and ran out of my room, waking up the entire house. I couldn't explain what I saw that night. I was almost questioning my own sanity, and that's why I don't tell this story often. For the record, I was 100% sober at the time, and also because I could move, I don't think it was sleep paralysis. The strange thing is that years later, my sister ran into the daughter of the previous family, and she told my sister that her mom had actually passed in the house, not at the hospital. Yeah, that can definitely add to the possibility of a haunting. Are you serious? What is it with these commercials? Good God. So this one's called The Basement Dweller. That doesn't sound creepy at all, does it? What is it with basements anyway? My God. I heard what I thought was my brother singing. We had a piano in our basement as teenagers, and early in the morning or late at night, he spent quite a bit of time on it playing music. I should note we lived in an old house and the sound traveled relatively well, so even when he was being quiet, you could hear him all the way up to the top floor. One morning at around 8 a.m., I woke up and went about getting ready for the day, and my brother was singing in the basement, being loud and obnoxious. His voice is very distinct. I remember walking out of the bathroom, leaning over the top of the stairwell and shouting down for him to shut up. He kept going, so I shouted louder. But then I remembered my brother wasn't even home that day. He'd left earlier that morning with my parents. The singing stopped. I went downstairs to find the basement dark. I was alone in the house. Oh, that's not at all creepy, right? No. That's pretty weird. If you know you're alone, oh God, Bill. Bill, that's a terrible gif. Oh my God. Bill put it looks like the Nosferatu gif. That's terrible. That's spooky as hell. All right, so the next one is called The Voice Inside Your Head. I heard this story about a family friend. This woman, well, we'll call her Anne, was reportedly sitting at home reading when she heard a voice in her head. The voice told her, "Please don't be afraid. I know it must be shocking for you to hear me speaking to you like this, but this is the easiest way I could think of. My friend and I used to work at the Children's Hospital, Great Ormond Street, and we would like to help you. We need you to go there." Like to help you, we need you to go there. Okay. Anne's response to this voice was about what you would expect. Frightened at what was happening, she tried to ignore the message, but the voice reassured her by providing her with additional information about the hospital she would need to attend. Convinced by this point she had gone mad, she consulted her family doctor, who referred her to a psychiatrist. After an examination which showed no medical explanation for what Anne had heard, he diagnosed her with functional hallucinatory psychosis. Although with supported counseling, she was also treated with medicine, and the voices disappeared after a couple of weeks. But the voices returned several weeks later, even though she was still taking the medication. This time the voices were even more specific in directing Anne to the diagnostic imaging wing of the nearby hospital. The voices then informed her that she had a tumor in her brain and that she needed a scan for proper diagnosis. They even told her the approximate location of the tumor in her brainstem. Though the doctor had found no evidence supporting the presence of a tumor, Anne was distressed enough by this time that he ordered the scan done. This actually took some negotiating, since the test is an expensive procedure, and the lack of any apparent medical justification aside from a hallucination made the request hard to fathom. After considerable debate, the scanning was done. The results made their jaws drop. Sure enough, the scan showed evidence of tumor in her brainstem. The neurosurgeon gave Anne and her husband the option of immediate surgery, as opposed to waiting for actual symptoms to appear. After weighing the pros and cons, Anne decided immediate surgery, and the voices were in full agreement. The operation was carried out with no surgical complications. According to Anne, she heard from the voices one last time after regaining consciousness, and they said, "We are pleased to have helped you. Goodbye." That's awesome. That's the kind of haunting everybody needs. It's like, yeah, if you're going to be there, help out. At least drag a vacuum around or something, or give me good health advice. All right. This one is The Haunting of Lover's Lane. When I was 19 or so, I was dating this guy. Since we both lived with our parents, we would drive out to abandoned lots to make out. One time we pulled into an old abandoned shopping plaza. A couple minutes in, I got very uneasy feeling. I kept thinking about a man whose hair was on fire. I don't know how I knew this, but it just sensed that he wanted us to leave. My boyfriend noticed that I looked scared, and he says, without any prompting from me, I have this weird feeling like someone's watching us and he's on fire, and we both booked it out of there so fast. Drove by a few days again after a few days later during the day, and there were distinct burn marks on the building that we hadn't even noticed before. No laughing matter. My dad bought this rundown house as a fixer-upper. I was about 8 or 9 at the time, so I couldn't do much to help him out, but I remember helping him clean out the attic. It was full of tons of old newspapers and toys that people must have been hoarders or something, just tons of toy dolls and cars and all of that. Well, that creeped me out on its own, but I only found out the real story much later. This is the scary part. The part my dad waited until we were grown up to tell us. One person came by to look at the house when it was near finished for sale, and she said she really wanted it because it was full of spirits. My dad thought she was wacky, but whatever. If that's what she liked, good for her, I guess. Well, sometime later, my dad and mom were laying in bed at the house when they hear a woman laughing somewhere in the corridors. They both rolled over, just looked into each other's eyes as they listened. And they stayed that way until it stopped. Then never talked about it for a long time. They both get chills when they tell that story now. Wow, I don't know how long they lived in it, but wow. This is a visit from the other side. At my dad's funeral, my sister, aunt, and I all sat around the table discussing various things. One of the things we talked about was my cousin's funeral. She passed about 12 years earlier. She got hit by a drunk driver while on vacation. She was just 10 or 11 years old, going into 5th grade. My sister was 8 and I was 5 at the time. My sister told the story. God bless it. Oh, I hate that. What the hell? Hold on. My sister told the story about how she and a friend had gone to play at the playground where my cousin had gone to school. While they were playing, they saw a little girl hanging out around them, but never coming up to them and never saying anything. Both my sister and her friend were freaked out. The girl was wearing jean short overalls, a white flowery t-shirt, and had long brown hair braided into pigtails. I chimed in and said that girl must be really poor and not able to buy new clothes because when I would play there, that little girl was still there and she would follow me around on the playground. My friends all saw her too, and they just thought it was weird. For some reason, though, she didn't weird me out. I just thought she was shy and wanted friends. She was always wearing the exact same outfit my sister described and had long brown hair braided into pigtails. And this is when my aunt burst into tears. It turns out that my cousin was buried in a brand new pair of blue jean short overalls, a white tee with flowers on it, and with her long brown hair braided into 2 pigtails. My sister and I have no doubt that the girl we both saw on that playground was our cousin. Wow, that's kind of cool, I guess. It's amazing so many people saw that same thing, though. That's very wild. Wow. The Lady in Blue. I don't know if I got time to get into this one, ladies and gentlemen, because we're almost at our last break, if you can believe it. It goes so fast here, but it's how we roll in the portal. Time is an anomaly here, but I hope you guys are enjoying the show. I appreciate you guys being here with me. Please, if you're not subscribed, get subscribed. We got 1/2 hour to go, but hit that subscribe and hit the bell and all the notifications if you want to know when we're live. We're always doing live shows here on YouTube. Wednesday through Sunday nights. Monday and Tuesdays are off, but that's just so I can remain sane. I'm always trying to do things for the shows on those days off. Sometimes it works out really well. Sometimes it doesn't, but I'm always trying. So always trying to develop new and better shows. And if you've got a lot of paranormal stories of your own, don't forget to email me because I love to interview actual experiencers on the podcast. And I'd like to hear from you if you've got a bunch of your own stories. So reach out to me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. So we are going to go to the last break of the night, and then we'll be back with a little more of the show, another half hour of it as we roll. And then you'll be in the arms of Paisley Wild. The spaces between if you stick around on TFR, iHeart, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live. And then the Duke after that with World Bigfoot Radio. So there's lots coming up yet tonight on TFR. So stick around. We'll do our best to entertain you. Just saying. All right, folks. Here comes the bell. Any second. There it is. So don't go away. We'll be right back for more of the Paranormal Portal. The last half hour in just a couple minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back and back at it. 1.5 hour left to go. It just goes so quickly, but hope you've been enjoying the ride so far. I've certainly been enjoying bringing it to you. Always something fun to discuss here in the portal, but you know, whenever you do a show about the paranormal, there's so many possibilities. And that's what I love. I've got a big feature set to discuss here, and we try to do something for everybody, so as we can, as much as we can. But anyway, I do want to get through this article, but how much longer is it? Jesus, it's actually a lot longer. So I think I'm gonna hold off on that for a minute. I want to spend some time talking about some Bigfoot sightings. I always like going over those. I love the idea that they're out there, you know, that they're appearing and that people are seeing them. One thing I am noticing is that, you know, there's certain areas of the country seem to have a lot more sightings than others. But I mean, honestly, there is just sightings everywhere except in the U.S., except for Hawaii. And that makes sense because I think they can swim. I think Bigfoot can swim with no problem at all. However, I think there's a limit to how far they can swim. And I'm sure doing the breaststroke all the way to Hawaii would be a hell of a thing. But yeah, it's the one site that there is nothing listed on the BFRO site. That's the one state there isn't anything. But if you've got an area you want to hear about Bigfoot stories in your area or sightings that have come in your state, or, you know, if you're in Canada, your province, I don't know if I can do other places. Let's see. I can do some in Australia. There's one in Australia. I should read the one in Australia. There's 11 in China. So I think, there's actually 3 in Indonesia as well. Wow. Let's check into the one in Australia, though. There's only one on the BFRO, and it's from ABC News. It's a media article. I don't think this is really what we want, but let me just see what it says. This is from January 13th of 2002. I just want to open it up. I like to do this where, you know, you guys can tell me an area that you're interested in learning about. No, that one's way long. I don't know. Let me just look at this. All right. I think the BFRO needs to update their site, though. This looks like an old GeoCities site. You know, if any of you are old school internet people, you know what I'm saying when I say GeoCities. It's just got that same layout. It's really time for a facelift there. Moneymaker and friends, it's time for you to update your site because that thing is looking pretty dated. But yeah, it's a long report, but it's a news report, so I'm not going to waste time with that. I like to cover the actual captures. There's Australia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Himalaya, Russia's, other countries and regions. There's only 6. So if you know somewhere, throw back, Brent. What are we throwing back? What are you talking about? Yeah. Oh, the GeoCities. Yeah. Sorry, I sometimes talk and forget what the hell I'm saying. Yeah, GeoCities were something else. They were great in the day, but that day was long ago, and so it's important to update. I'll show you what if you haven't been to the BFRO's page, and I would recommend you go there because it really is a great repository for a lot of fantastic reports. And you know, they don't go into like article like length, but they do go into the specifics. What did people see? And they do follow-up reports with their BFRO investigators. And I know some people take them on the chin, or at least give them on the chin to the BFRO. But I'll tell you what, I don't know. Are they controlling a narrative? Maybe. I don't know. I don't think so though. It seems like a bunch of good people just in love with the subject and trying to document it as best they can. Now, is that perfect? Hell no. Any organization that's run by people is going to have problems, but. I think for the most part, it's a great resource. It's a great place to go to check. But here's what the BFR site looks like. And this is why I say GeoCities, because it's like, you can tell it was formatted for an entirely different kind of layout from back in the 90s. It's got that, it fills up only half of a browser window, and it goes vertical down. And at the time, it probably filled up the whole browser pages, but it's not scalable to the bigger pages, so they need an update. So this is what a GeoCities looked like from back in the day. It was really something. All right, let me check and see if people are talking about where they want me to look. So 1 second while I switch this back and see if anybody's shouting out a state. Give me a state. Give me a place. that you want to see? Nope. As usual, the chat's in their own place. Okay, let's see if the TFR has anything to say. Otherwise, I'm just going to start randomly picking places that I think are interesting. Anybody got a state where they want to hear if there's any sightings? New York. Farm says New York. Kylie says Victoria. You said New York the other time too, Farm. Did I ever read any for you? Let's go for Kylie first. All right, Kylie. I'm going to give you Oregon. Let's see. Oregon is huge for Bigfoot stuff. Way big. Where's I can remember my alphabet here. There's 256 reports in Oregon. All right, let's see. We will do New York too, Farm. Don't worry. I'd never leave you out of it, but I'm looking for some Class A's. Where's the biggest repository in Oregon here? 27 from Clackama County. That looks like the top county. There's 21 in Josephine County. But let's go to Clackamas and see what's going on there, because that is where most stuff is happening, apparently. And I'm only going to focus on the Class A sightings. There's lots of Class B in the first part of the article, but let's look. I don't know. I want to make sure I didn't... I just want to make sure it's not one that I read on another show. Okay. I think this one was. Let me continue on down. I'm going to go down to the lower part of this, and this is from November of 1995. And this is Clackama County. Its nearest town was Colton, and the other nearest road was Hunter Road. It happened in the woods near Hunter Road outside the town of Colton. Person says, I was bow hunting and had parked myself between two deer trails, each running alongside a clear cut. I was dead center with 25 yards between me and each trail. I faced west into the wind at about dusk, and there was usually a lot of deer in the area, but on this evening, it seemed very quiet. Just as it became too dark to see my aiming sights, I heard crunching footsteps coming from directly behind me. At the time, I thought it might be a buck in rut. The animal seemed to be following my scent directly to where I was, hidden in some blackberry bushes. A cover scent had been applied to my clothes and boots using pine needles that were blended with water. My clothes were soaked in the solution and dried, very effective, at least for deer anyway. The animal walked right up to the clearing behind me. I had plenty of time to turn around and situate myself for a clear shot. I raised my bow and came into view, and it came into my view 25 yards away and stopped. It seemed to know exactly where I was sitting. We were staring at each other from a distance of about 75 feet for about a full minute. The Bigfoot slowly swayed back and forth a few inches from side to side. I estimated it to be about 7.5 feet tall and maybe 600 pounds plus. I never pulled back the bow, and the Bigfoot eventually just turned around and walked in the other direction, the same direction it came from. Because of the thick leaves on the ground, no tracks were found the next day when I returned to look around. The animal was black in color, and its shoulders were approximately 4 feet wide. Since this incident happened, I've brought up this subject with many people in the area, and I'm surprised at how many have had or know someone who has had experiences in this county. If you've ever been in the area, look me up and can take a trip to the Cascades here behind my home. Yeah, this is Oregon, for God's sakes. It's definitely a huge hotspot for the Bigfoot. And here's the thing, if you're not really familiar with the Bigfoot phenomena, like most animals, you think that they get scarce during hunting seasons. They probably because they're used to being shot at and stuff. But I really agree with a lot of researchers that say hunting seasons are the dinner bell, because these things are so adept in the woodlands. They don't have any problem even being absolutely deadly quiet. And they can traverse areas that would normally make a lot of sound. Whether they do it just off the floor of the forest, can they elevate themselves in the tree canopy? Maybe. but they can traverse areas through thick brambles. People have seen them pushing through thorns and vines and just going right through it, the steamrolling right through it. And I suppose, for us, we're maybe not that strong, but these things will go wherever they have to go. And so when somebody shoots an animal, a lot of times, unless you get that one really great shot, most of the time you hit an animal and then you have to track an animal. You've got to follow the blood trail to where it will eventually collapse. And sometimes people go to where these animals eventually collapsed, but there's no animal there. And my brother was one of those people. Now, he's not a Bigfoot believer at all. He thinks all this stuff is kind of hokey and weird, and that's fine. I don't need him to believe, but he had shot a buck, and I've told the story many times. He followed it. He said it got it good. It was losing a lot of blood, and there couldn't have been anything left in it, and the blood trail just stopped. And he and his friend looked around, couldn't find any gut piles, nowhere it was dragged out. This is in Minnesota, but, Minnesota whitetail in the farm country is a big deer. They're pretty well fed, and this is a big animal, but there was no animal to be found. No signs anybody had been there. It's just gone. And he said it just baffled him because there's no blood. Couldn't have had any more blood to go. And yet it was gone. So I think that they consider it an easy mealtime from us. They can just go in, pick up a deer, pick up whatever we're shooting, and have an easy time with it. And they can do that and avoid our detection completely. I think they're fast, they're quick, they're adept, they're agile, and they know how to move through this. This is their home. It's like, we like to think we're good in the woods, but on the natural scale, we're very slow. We're very clumsy. We're very loud, and we smell weird. Everything knows we're in the woods when we're in the woods. Hunters, I think of all the hunters, bow hunters are probably the most likely to have experiences because, bow hunters can't sit at the luxury of a 100-yard shot or 200 or 300 yards. They can't do that. They got to get up close and personal, and that requires them to get into places without the animals becoming alerted. And so they're very good at what they do. So I don't know what the breakdown is for hunters, how many bow hunters versus other hunters. I think there's less bow hunters, so there's probably is more rifle hunters and stuff, and I'm not degrading any of them either. I mean, as far as people go, they're very good in the woods, but as far as animals go, none of us are very good in the woods. So, but I think it's pretty intense. So that's Clackamas County. Let's see what else is there. This one's also from Clackamas County, July 1995, Class A experience. This is 95, July, Oregon. Clackamas County says the location details are camp where sighting occurred is off of Highway 211, about 5 miles from the town of Molalla, okay, on the road to Dickey Prairie. On the road to Dickey Prairie. I've been there many times. It says the nearest town is Molalla. I saw what I believe was a Sasquatch about 5 years ago. I was 16 years of age. I was volunteering as a counselor at a day camp. A friend and I went for a walk on the trails within the camp. We were cleaning trails, and we also brought our lunches, which we planned to eat later. We were on the outskirts of camp, maybe half a mile from the main camp, very close to the Molalla River, and I was about 60 feet from a muddy creek, kind of a swampy area, and I remember sitting down to eat lunch, and my friend realized that he had left something back at the camp that he needed. I can't remember what he went to get, but maybe a tool or something to drink. So he left, and I remained seated on the log waiting for him to come back. I expected the jog to maybe take 10 minutes, and he had been gone for at least 7 minutes when I heard something in the woods to my left. I stood up to get a better look at what it was, and what I observed was a massive, hairy, man-like animal standing next to a large tree. I think it was a cedar tree. It was about 50 feet away. I estimate that it was about 8 feet tall. I stood about 5'9" at the time, and it was way taller than me. It was also very wide and bulky looking. The fur was thick and fairly long, maybe 6 inches, and medium brown in color. It looked directly at me, and for a few seconds, we had solid eye contact. It had that dark-colored eyes. It seemed to be shocked or surprised that and was deciding what to do. It stepped to its right, my left, behind the large tree, and immediately began to run away. I could not see it run away because the tree blocked my view, but I definitely heard it. It sounded very heavy. The footsteps could be heard clearly. It was snapping down branches as it ran, creating a lot of noise, and it sounded very powerful. I listened to it run away for maybe 10 seconds, and then I turned around and ran back on the trail towards camp. I met up with my friend on his way back to meet me. He says, I was the only witness, the only person that actually witnessed the events. My friend was on his way back from retrieving something from the main camp as I waited. I may have been snacking on some of my lunch. Okay. That's pretty wild. And he also has an addendum, said, I just recently heard stories about a mother and daughter in Beaver Creek, Oregon, who encountered Sasquatch, but I do not know any details. Beaver Creek is not really too far from Molalla, within the same county. So, there you go. Just a nice day camp. I suppose those are, they're usually built out away from the main stuff, Got to create that wooded camp experience. That's pretty cool. I don't know what that would feel like. I don't know. This kid seems rather nonchalant about it. I mean, he says he ran away at the end, but he did stay and watch it for as long as it lasted. And I got to tell you, if I saw something like that in the woods, my first question would be, is that what's going to kill me? Really. Because we do hear those horror stories. We hear the missing 411 stories. We hear these stories of people disappearing without a trace and just gone. And you've got to wonder that at least in some of those events, Sasquatch could very likely be one of the culprits. That's not too far beyond possibility. And I guess the possibility is dependent upon you believing in Sasquatch, but I do. I had a closer encounter when I was younger of what I think was a Sasquatch, and that was by far the most terrifying experience of my life, because whatever made the sound, I was sure was about to kill me. I thought that was the last moments of my life. It was absolutely terrifying. I never did see it, but I didn't want to. In this case, I had a choice because whatever made the sound was directly behind me. And I decided that the one solace I was going to take was that I didn't know what it looked like. I didn't know what killed me looked like. Like, that was the one thing I wasn't going to take in my eternity, was this horribly monstrous visage coming at me, So I was just, but then it didn't come. And then I said to my friend, what is that? And he said, I don't know. We got to get out of here. And then we ran. But if I was in this situation, like this teenager, and had something appear just off into the woods near me, and having that eye contact, what do you do? I'm really amazed he stuck it out, man. He sat through it until it ran away. He was there. He didn't buck or bolt until it was over, and then he went, man, I got to get the hell out of here. So it was like rational thought came next, but I think if I saw that thing, it would be like, oh, that's going to kill me. That'll kill me quick. I think that would be my first thoughts. And then if nothing happened, then if I was still able to stick it out to see what happened, then, I guess that'd be pretty cool. But man, I just physically speaking, ladies and gentlemen, if these things are indeed as big as they are said to be, which is 8 feet or, right in that area with, 5 foot wide shoulders, and obviously much, much, much stronger than a gorilla. And we know how incredibly powerful gorillas are. It'd be, multiples of gorilla strength. And it's standing there would have no trouble mashing you into pudding in just a minute, just a second. It would be absolutely nothing you could do except try to die with some dignity if it did go sideways. And it's firearms are about our only recourse in a situation like that. And I'm pretty sure this kid wasn't packing. So I know I wasn't when I was 14 years old. I wasn't lobbing guns around. I was just a kid in the Minnesota woods. But all that was in my woods, as far as I knew, was white-tailed deer. So that's why it was such an incredible experience. Like, oh my God, this is not a deer. Whatever was growling was so big. Oh, it still just gives me chills when I think about it. It's like, oh, it just makes my heart drop. But, I made it, thank God. And this kid made it, thank God again. But, I mean, if they decided to hurt us, I mean, it wouldn't have done this anyway. If it was going to hurt this kid, he would have been dead before he even knew it was there, I'm sure. It's just all of a sudden you feel a quick jerk and it's over. I think they have no trouble remaining hidden from us, obviously, because they're very adept at it. They do it all the time. So, if it would wanted to hurt him, I guess that would be the one recourse. If it wanted to hurt you, it probably wouldn't be staring at a distance looking at you. It would have already hurt you. So maybe that's the takeaway. If you see them, you're probably going to be okay, because if they wanted to kill you, they wouldn't have let you see them. They would have just killed you. I don't know. It's just my babbling logic, folks, but I got a whole lot of it. This is how I roll. How we doing? We got 4 minutes left of the show. Wow. I can see if I can squeeze in one more of these. Let's see what another one is here. Okay, here's one from 1993. Clackama County. We're just going to stick with this farm, sorry. But I'm just going to stay with it for brevity's sake. This is from Clackama County at a cabin on Still Creek Road, Lot 18, outside Rhododendron. It says, about 11 years ago, my fiance and I had a cabin on Mount Hood area in Oregon. This is really small print, so I'm leaning in. We were in the roofing business, and I was sorting out some cedar shakes outside the cabin, and I had a Rottweiler tied to a tree. Well, she started growling and looking up towards the forest. I looked up and saw something big and hairy step from tree to tree. They have huge cedars here. And it did not register at first what I was seeing, so I yelled for whatever it was there to leave, or I'd turn the dog loose. It stepped behind another tree and kept doing so repeatedly. I finally called my kids and told them to come out and keep an eye on this thing while I got my work done. I usually have a Mossberg semi-automatic shotgun. I did not this day. It was moving in closer, and then my boyfriend pulled up, and it was gone. It was then that I realized it wasn't a bear we were watching. Also noticed in winter we found large barefoot tracks in the snow. Would smell a really rotten smell like something dead and come out later, and the smell would be gone. The dogs would sit and just stare at the woods. Would hear weird animal noises like a growl and howl together. There's other witnesses, 3 of them, 11-year-old daughter, 11-year-old stepson, and herself. They were in the cabin. I was outside sorting shingles. The manager of the motel in Rhododendron was hiking with her very large dog, and it went after something and disappeared. They followed the tracks where the prints just stopped, like someone picked up the dog, which this dog was too big for. Hours later, it came home all bloody. It was not bleeding and did not have a mark on it, where it fought something. There have been many stories around that particular hiking trail. Wow. So, if you live in Clackamas County, stay away from the areas around Rhododendron. No, I'm just kidding. They're out there. They're everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. But that's how it rolls. So I guess it's going to wrap it up for me. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. As always, I enjoy bringing it to you. We'll be back. Donald will be here tomorrow. We'll get back to business on the Saturday craziness that we always have. So I hope you'll join us then. I think a week from tonight, I haven't firmed this up with Kev Baker, but I think that's going to be our 5-hour marathon between Kev Baker's Freaky Friday and the Paranormal Portal. But I gotta talk to Kev. It was the plan earlier in the year, but I gotta make sure, because maybe that's changed. But anyway, folks, hope you'll tune in tomorrow night, Saturday night, right here on YouTube or in TFR Live, and 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We'll be back. Don will be with me, so there'll be even more to love. So I hope you'll be here as well. That's all I got for you. Again, please, if you're not subscribed, get subscribed. If you're not sharing our streams to your social media or our videos from our vault of over 830 episodes here on YouTube, if you want to share any of them to your social media, please do so. I would be absolutely honored. That's my permission to you. Go ahead and do it. That's great. And, help people find us if you think they're going to like the portal. I would be absolutely thrilled. But that's all I got, ladies and gentlemen, and that's all we're going to have time for. So I love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other. Help each other out. Find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. Good night, everybody.